absolutely delighted that the first movie that we watched together was Dublin Oldschool, and we're even more delighted that writer and star of said movie, Emmet Kirwan, has joined us. Emmet is unmuted there. And then late in the day, Dave Leahy and Michael Donnelly also join us, and they are the producers of the film, if you'd like. Just to give Emmet his introduction, his proper introduction, Emmet Kirwan is an Irish actor, playwright, screenwriter, spoken word artist, and activist. Couple of things I looked up today. His play, Dublin Oldschool, won the Stuart Parker Award, and he's performed at the National Theatre in London. He's won an IFTA for his short film Heartbreak. Other credits include a part in Ella Enchanted with Anne Hathaway. We might talk about that in a minute, Emmet. And two random facts you may not know about Emmet. He was tied up during an armed robbery when he was 24, and he never cries. This is what happens on it. Am I wrong with any of that, Emmet? Is that all correct?
Janet Regan said this to me recently about the never cries thing. I think Ian Lloyd Anderson said this, that he said I never cried. That's not true. Only sociopaths don't cry.
Well, that's what I was going to start with. There's a very good question and answer session with both yourself and your co-star, Ian, and it is credited as you saying you never cry, but...
I think the question, you know what it was? It was actually, Una Mullally was conducting an interview for the last time we did the play, and that's where that tied up in the robbery quote comes from. And I think she said, "When's the last time you cried?" And I jokingly said, "Braveheart." And then I said, "I don't cry because real men don't cry." So usually when those things then go into print, you can't get tone, or the fact that people think you think you're hilarious or whatever. So now obviously everybody thinks I'm, I don't know, Norman Bates.
Emmet, can you maybe tell us a little bit how, because obviously this Dublin Oldschool started off as a play, and I guess I think what might be interesting for some of our viewers is to maybe know how you go from, you've got this play, you've put it out there, and then how kind of Michael and Dave got involved and the whole adaptation process and transferring the story to screen happened.
Dave Tynan had seen the play in its very first iteration in Bewley's, which is the cafe that's just closed down, the top floor that used to have a theatre. And it started off as a very, very small show, like a 50 seater venue, and it kind of grew to bigger venues then, went onto the project. And Dave and Mike and Dave Tynan came to see it. They took me for a pint. The film came out in the summer in 2018, and they took me for a pint. I think it was Christmas 2016. And both Dave and Mike said to me, "We guarantee that we can get this film made in 18 months. And I kind of just went, yeah, not like, but like that, but not doubting them or their talents or their skills, just the nature of the film business and the nature of pulling all of the strings together to make a film is kind of impossible. And right enough, true to their word, literally like within a year and a half, we were on set and we were shooting. I think it was, the lads might be out there, I can't remember, was it June? This is the summer set play, and we made sure that the film would be set in summer, and we shot it over the course of the summer as well, So Mike and Dave put myself and Dave Tynan in a room together to try and adapt the play. And the play is the brother scenes are almost verbatim of what you see in the film, or what they are almost exactly what you see in the play. But the rest of the film and the rest of the play are quite different in the sense that we had to expand that story and contract some parts of that story, And but the guys will probably be able to tell you a bit more about kind of the logistics of how hard it is to get a film made in Ireland, which is incredibly tough. But they did it, and as you can see, the product that they put together is pretty impressive. You know what I mean?
I'm very impressed to hear that you said 18 months we are going to be on set.
They did, yeah. I think it was Dave Leahy said it to me, and he was as I was like swilling a pint, going,
yeah, right. Yeah. Very good.
Slapped him on the back of the head.
The just before Paul jumps back in, one thing I'm just curious to know is, for Dave, maybe first to answer, Dave Leahy, when you came to see the show in Bewley's, what was it that grabbed you about it?
Well, actually, I'd never seen the play, and we'd done this film board funded. I produced this film board funded 1916 memorial short film that Dave Tynan, who had seen the play in Bewley's, directed, and Mike had worked on that as the first assistant director, and it was a good shoot, but it was pretty tough. And we were actually in a pub, I can't remember which, Fagan's pub, and I tried to get tickets for the play a few times and I couldn't. And Mike came over and said, "Have you seen the play?" And I was like, "No, I've tried." And he goes, "Oh, it's amazing. Like, you got to see it. In fact, we should make a film of it." And we kind of decided then that we were going to do it. And then I suppose because it was our first, certainly dramatic feature film, first thing doing together, first big project, Dave Tynan's first big project, and it was, first for a lot of things. I just think we were kind of positively naive that we just sort of said, we're going to make this happen. But I think we did have a kind of a faith in it because of all the sort of heritage and goodwill attached to it. And, we had discussions with a project manager in the film board, and that project manager subsequently sort of, segued out of the film board into Element Pictures, and then we kind of resumed discussions on that. And I think it just became like we just sort of willed it into existence, and it became sort of pulling a group of people together that had all sort of worked in little silos into one big group. And we just sort of said, we're doing it. We put a marker down, and there was a lot of other decisions we made that probably could have got us a little bit more money. But to Emmet's point, we decided, summer, this is when we're shooting it. And we basically told people this is when we're shooting it and willed it into existence. I don't know, Mike, that's my memory of it anyway.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. Yeah, kind of pig-headed ignorance kind of got us there. And I think what I was saying there was really important, that we had an opportunity to wait a couple of months longer and we would have got more finance. But it was that idea of we had to make it during the summer. So much of it, is kind of set at night and in that blistering heat, and we just decided that August was it. That was kind of.
We were kind of lucky as well because at that time the play was still lucky enough. Usually what happens with plays is they come and they go. They're kind of ephemeral kind of things. Like they get one or two productions, if ever. And fortunately, the Project Arts Centre had brought the play to Edinburgh, and it received a lot of notice in the UK. And then it got brought to the West End and was put on the National Theatre. So there was a continual kind of theatrical momentum that was happening with the play. And then the play would come back every year at Christmas, kind of like a Christmas show for the project, so because it was literally just two people and two microphones. So we were quite lucky that there was productions of the play, and anybody that might have been a bit kind of not really sure about the idea of it, we could bring them to the play because it was on every 9-10 months for about 5 or 6 years in a row.
Screen Ireland were the main anchor funder, and then you have your tax break money, and then you also have with some investment from a fairly well-known post-production house, Wimmer Lane. And then we had a little bit from our distribution company. But it is to Emmet's point, all those execs are the people who have to be convinced that the project's viable.
Yeah.
And not all lunatics, and there's a lot of that kind of discussion to get to the point where we make it.
The guys, they hit the nail on the head, like the pig-headedness of the two lads and the crew that they have made films with before. They would have all have made things together. They as a grouping of people, because myself and Ian would have worked solely on our own, but they as a grouping had made so many other things together, and they kind of just willed it. Dave and Mike and the team that was around them, like JJ, the cinematographer, and Dave, the director, and everybody else, just kind of willed the film into existence, really. It's kind of, someone said to me before, like funding for the arts, and I think it's kind of important, and even for you guys as a centre, like it shouldn't be called grants, it should be called pitches, or like the way somebody would pitch for a building job, like companies would pitch to build, governments like to build a hospital or something like that. Usually it's like a small business loan that's given out to people that then is returned, and ultimately like the money is given by various different bodies, government, private, blah blah blah, but then they all get their money back in the end, essentially. So they have to know that the thing that you are making is something that people will want to come see, and that that you're not just going to run off with £1 million by your own island.
Emmet, you said the film came from the play. So where did the play come from?
The play in the early, myself and Ian Lloyd Anderson were doing a play called Major Barbara in the Abbey Theatre. We've done a lot of plays together. We shared a lot of dressing rooms together, and all of the plays were old plays. They were never contemporary. And contemporary plays don't usually get on stage. You know, it takes a lot in Dublin and Ireland, especially. So I said to Ian, I said, look, the next thing we do is going to be a contemporary piece of theatre, because that's why I became an actor, because I love theatre, but I love contemporary plays, and a lot of contemporary plays were written in Ireland in the 1990s. For some reason, during the Celtic Tiger period, new plays weren't really written that much, and especially after the crash, a lot of new plays weren't written. So I said I'd write a play that was quite kind of, you know, energetic, because a lot of theatre is just, you know, two people standing in pools of light talking. And Dublin Oldschool, the play, is that, but it also had spoken word rap and beats and comedy and a story. And so I kind of had a story as well that I kind of wanted to tell about the preservation of a youth culture that I had experienced 10 years previously or whatever. And I wanted to kind of encapsulate those stories in some sort of like record. Yeah. So that's kind of where it came from. Just a need to kind of write a piece of energetic theatre that would be exciting, that people would want to see, you know.
Is it autobiographical to an extent, Emmet?
There's one meeting that I had like with my brother 20 years ago, but that's it. Like, that's the only thing that's in it. That's kind of, I met him on a street after not seeing him for 3 years, and it was in another city, it was in another time, and I kind of, that was the spark of the idea, where I went, well, what would happen if the two of them were in this situation? Two brothers were in this situation, and they kept on meeting, not just once, but twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times over the course of a weekend, truncated into something, you know. So, so no, it's not. It's a collection of loose kind of stories. You know what I mean? There's a story about a hole in a party, and I don't know if you know Shockproof Beats. He's on, or Shocko. I don't know what he is now on Twitter, but he. That story's true. Somebody did roll through a wall at a session, a DJ, and or no, a bloke called Hole in the Wall Paul, ever since, and somebody did actually, another guy called English Tom. They all had names. Did actually go down with Shocko. He was called Shocko because his hair was shockingly red, and they did actually plaster a hole back up in a wall of this kind of gaff that was abandoned, but was given to us on the kind of will that we wouldn't wreck it. And then literally within half an hour, somebody did literally do a ninja roll and roll straight through the wall. It was quite funny. But yeah, Shocko went down and got a load of newspapers with another guy called English Tom, and they started stuffing the wall, and I didn't know what they were doing. I kind of just like left them to it, and I came back and they had actually fixed the hole in the wall and got a load of magnolia paint and then painted it. Yeah, so that story's true. But yeah.
When I was introing you there, did you raise an eyebrow over the word activist?
Yeah, I don't know. I would never ever put myself. I've never written that underneath my bio. So.
Someone wrote it somewhere. The clip that I think brought you to a lot of people's attention was what they call the Varadkar, or the Leo clip. Would I be right in saying that seemed to be everywhere for a while? Did you get a lot of feedback on that?
But ultimately, you know, all art is political, and to me, it wasn't strange to be an artist and speak politically, because all of the art and all of the work that I've done, like a show that I've done previous that I called Riot, was expressly political, and was incredibly, I would say, not subversive, but like the whole point of the thing was to be a counter to the 1916 celebrations that were going on. So to me, I'd never think anything twice about being political. But you forget that most people, when they're watching you, they don't consume your art. They haven't seen your plays, they haven't seen your poetry, or read your poetry, they haven't read your plays, they haven't watched your films. They just see you as some guy on the television, and all of a sudden then you're talking about politics. So there's a disparity or a kind of disconnect between the two, where they only know you as somebody who's talking about politics, where you're going, oh no, actually all of my work is political as well. But yeah, so I don't know if that even answers your question. I'd say Dave and Mike were probably, they're probably like shouting at the screen going, shut up and just talk about the film.
Yeah, but back
Tell
to the,
people it's a comedy.
going back to the whole idea of film at the moment, Dave and Mike, it's a bit hard to escape the COVID elephant in the room. What does the industry, what were you guys working on, and how do you have to work on stuff now going forward? Maybe Dave or Mike.
Mike, cover.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think first of all, I think the where we operate, the kind of independent film game was in a weird place. That was getting weirder over the last few years. It was certainly, you know, the way that films are sold, the sales figures were dropping all over the world. A lot more films were getting made, but it was a lot harder to get them financed. Everything was kind of moving towards streaming, and the power that the streamers have was becoming a lot greater. Look, I think all of that's been massively accelerated now, for sure. And I think the landscape as a result will be inherently changed. And you see a lot of people moving, you know, more towards TV and more towards the shorter form content as a result. In the immediate, like the next few years, it's really hard to know. Like, people will still inherently want to watch things, so you know, you will presume that the big stuff will still get made, and I think the super small stuff will still get made because people still have an inherent urge to create art. But I would have big fears for the likes of films like ours and films right up to that kind of 10 million mark that are going to be in a really kind of precarious situation now. But anyone who's been on a film set will tell you it's not somewhere you can kind of be socially distant. It's like you go in, but when you're in like a small room filming, and you might only see, like, let's say that scene with Emmet and Sean in front of the camera, but like you turn that camera around and there's like 8 people squeezed into every corner of that room, like holding mics, and the AD's there, and people are getting in and around with costumes and moving things around. So I don't know how stuff like that's going to happen in the kind of the shorter or medium term.
No, like it's just very. We were trying to have that discussion about, you know, how can it actually return to normal on sizable shoots. I think it's going to be very difficult. And I think to your point about the kind of entertainment spaces, you know, I was interested to see that some of the London cinemas, and I think some of them here as well, are like, we're opening in July. And I think the statistic I heard in the BBC was like a 60-person cinema will be a 12-person cinema, and you mightn't be able to buy food. So they're kind of saying, well, that, you know, what cinemas could survive that? And then, as much as you'd want to go and see the Christopher Nolan film in July, would you risk it? So
what would be the best way to support Irish film at the moment?
Well, I mean, I think stuff like this. I mean, I think Emmet had some discussion. We were actually chatting this morning on WhatsApp, and, you know, I think there has been some pretty good campaigns that Screen Ireland did a while ago, and it sounds like what Emmet was saying this morning, some of the Screen Ireland are funding some of the distributors to do even more pushing of Irish films on Irish platforms. I mean, as Mike says, the model has changed, and some really quality films that have been made, some I've seen, like Calm with Horses, and some I haven't seen, like Vivarium, they've all had their theatrical, you know, cinema window completely destroyed, and they're all on streaming platforms. And in fact, Calm with Horses and Vivarium both very well reviewed. So I just think it's important that, I suppose, there's more awareness for people to watch them where they are, because what else can you do? You know, drive the audiences to the streaming platforms. That's what all the film podcasts are doing as well. You know, there's no making up their own top 10s and just advising people what's good out there on Amazon and Mubi and all these other platforms, you know.
As Dave was saying, you know, like we do consume a lot of English and American content, but there's actually a hell of a lot of Irish content that's on streaming and on services that has never been watched even in Ireland. You know, kind of comes into the cinema and then goes out. A lot of that has to do with the cinemas themselves, you know, not really holding on to the film for long enough. They can kind of just give them a 1 week opportunity and then they disappear. So it's really great the Screen Ireland are going to try and push out what exists right now. Like Vivarium is a brilliant film, what Dave was saying, if you like science fiction. And Calm with Horses is brilliantly acted. It's one of the best acted films, Irish films I've seen. So yeah, definitely check it out.
I'd like to say that obviously this is part of An Táin Arts Centre's new programme. This was never part of our imagined programme. We cancelled everything from the 16th of March through currently to the end of August, but probably until the end of the year. And it's only through people like you guys logging on and subscribing to our stuff and hopefully going onto the website and maybe supporting us if that's possible, that we can continue to do what we do and continue to have artists do what they do. So look at antain.ie if you can for a donation, so we can promote Irish artists. I should say for those people with us now, you can have I think it's have we announced the next move, or am I doing that now officially?
Yeah, you're doing it now officially.
Okay, I'm doing it now officially. So we're very lucky that the next movie, which is on the second Tuesday of next month, second Tuesday of each month, is Cardboard Gangsters, and we'll be interviewing John Connors after the movie. So that should be a bit of crack as well. But for now, I want to say a huge thank you to Dave, to Michael, and to Emmet. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Thank you so much for giving us a wonderful film to watch together. And I hope you all stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and thanks for everybody for watching the film.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Thanks,
Have a good night.
Cheers. Thank you.